Time being 11 o'clock, I'll call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Patty.
Bill.
Here.
Wanda.
Here.
Don.
Here.
Dan.
Here.
Sherry.
Here.
Quorum present. Pen isn't working. This time, does anybody have a financial or non-financial reason to abstain?
No, I do not.
No.
I have none. Okay. Any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Move approval. Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Now it's time for public comment. Does anybody care to make public comment? Hearing and seeing none, public comment is closed. On to item 6, application process for Rural Access Infrastructure Fund. I think we're gonna pause just a couple minutes. We have 2 townships here, so I was hoping to see more than,
I guess you guys get all the money.
you
right?
guys must get it all.
Mike's on his way.
Mike is, okay.
Yeah, he was running a few minutes behind. So Mike's gonna bring all the printouts for the applications, et cetera. He's gonna have maps for you and the list of your structures. So that'll be provided once he gets here. Has anyone went out to the South Dakota Associations of Towns and Townships website and clicked on, there's supposed to be a link there that you can click on and you can zoom into Yankton County and your township and see all the structures. My internet is atrociously slow, so I cannot pull it up at home. So you guys might have the same challenge if you've got slow internet, but I don't know if anybody else has had luck. I know Mike can pull it up at his office in town.
I think this is right here. Do you want to maybe try to put it up on the big screen?
There you go, Valley. See, I should have
I got
taken you up
I
on
got
that.
it right here.
It says,
So
Right,
put a
yeah.
small structure.
yep, so the website is, I don't know if you can go to that or you have to go to the township website.
Well, it's on SDGIS.
Where's
I
the
can
little-
forward you the link. Where can I do?
You can just search South Dakota Association of Towns and Townships.
Sure. Let me, yeah, SDGIS.sd.gov. I might have to forward you the link or something. Yeah.
I can Forbidden Valley.
The link. Yeah.
It sounds like somebody should be going to jail.
I know,
That's serious shit.
that's serious, Valley.
Oops, I better-
Anybody want to be on my list that's not? Well, I'll add you to all that. I don't know where I got my original list from, but I tried to get someone.
Mike,
Got 3 folders for
Thank you.
now.
Copy of all that organized or unorganized.
I got all.
Sorry, we're. Thank you, sir.
well, at least it was a short one. Yeah. But I think this is what we're looking for.
Looks like that application that the state sent out. That 5-year plan for.
Mike, does this look accurate from?
Oh, these are all of them. Wow, okay.
Do you have to give these forms to Mike or to the state?
These
send
come
them in?
to us.
Yep, you know, and they didn't say, I think those 5-year plans are supposed to be filed with the state. That's not clarified. We'll have to find that out too.
Click on that, that'll go.
It's all right, Mike. We'll let it slide this time.
You're good. You did great. Are we ready?
I think so. Everybody, we'll kind of go through some of this stuff. What's up on the screen is that,
GIS layer from the state.
yeah,
Inventory that we took.
the link is, I got it somewhere. It's the sdtownship.com link, right? Can get you there.
Yeah, just Google South Dakota Township.
It's also. on the
Anyway,
SDACC website.
something that you don't have to use, but you can go to Yankton County, zoom in, and then all of those are the structures that were found. So you could get into your township and all the information for each structure should be there. You want to click on one, Dan? Or Mike? If you- Just kind of a good spot check, I guess. Must be 3. I thought the information on it was part of that.
There's the spreadsheet underneath.
Okay. Well,
Because there's supposed to be pictures.
Yeah, picture,
And
should be a
everything
picture
with
of that
it.
structure with the land, all the information that,
The current condition, whatever.
oh, there you.
That was. Yesterday.
Well,
Click right on, I could click right on the site there, or the.
try a different one. Otherwise, we'll chalk it up as a work in progress. Where are you seeing that? Well,
Okay.
Yeah, because it would show pictures and everything.
work in progress. It should have all your information of your structures in there. But with that, I think we've kind of go through maybe these applications in the packet and what's going to be required and some timelines. And I'll probably turn it over to Sherry because you seem good.
I have a
expert.
lot of paper in front of me.
You got-
I always have a lot of paper in front of me. You should see my desk at home. Okay, so they did, so we'll probably just revert back to that chain of emails that I have been sending out since legislative session. They did change some things about this, some minor things. So they did amend it that these dollars, once they come to the county, we have to spend them within 4 years or they revert back to the state. So they don't want us sitting on these forever. I don't think it's going to be a problem to spend the money. So, but they did add that. They changed the timeline around the program. So when you look at the small structure improvement plan there at the top, the 5-year structure improvement plan is now due August 31st. And they've made a fairly simple, I think, structure improvement plan. It's not as involved as what Mike has to do from a county perspective. So essentially, you're going to be, in my opinion, picking your worst structure. And if you're planning to do that in 2023, you'd list that 2023, this is the structure number, you would fill out the information. If you've got a second structure that is tough, and you think you can pay for that by 2026, you would put that down 2026. We're hoping to replace that structure then. You can say you're going to do one right after the other. I think that's probably not the best way to do it because in reality, unless you're sitting on a pot of money and you can do a bunch of structures, it's not realistic. So from a planning perspective, and we can get into that a little bit later, but that plan is due by August 31st. And my understanding is that plan is supposed to go to the county highway superintendent. Mike, did you got that? So that's supposed to go in. So you've got some decisions to make before August 31st on there. And part of this list that's in your packet is to go through and see which ones did they rate as poor condition. And you probably need to be going out and looking at those structures and getting in your mind a ballpark for what that structure is going to cost. And then do you have the funding to participate in getting that structure done for next year? And again, we'll talk about that a little bit. The next deadline they changed was the application is due October 31st. So you've essentially got, after you make your plan, you've got 2 months to decide, do you want to apply for funding in 2023? If you've got the money set aside and you've got a bridge you want to do next year, then you need to have that application completed by October 31st. And the application, I thought they did a pretty decent job. I believe they built it off of a Brookings County application. It's a one-page deal. The one, and we'll walk through the laws here that I think they missed a couple things on, but it's a pretty straightforward application. It's certainly not a federal funding application that you have to go through. And we'll walk through this in a second. So go ahead.
One note on the improvement plan sheet. Yeah, ideally, you're as accurate as you can, but that order of replacement isn't set in stone. So if you
No.
fill that out and there's, you say, you just go off that list, let's say, and go to a poor condition one and you put that at the top and then you're driving around, you think, well, this is nobody lives on this road, it's in poor condition, but this one's, we should replace first. You can move them around, just make sure you have something on here and try to be as accurate as you can.
It's updated every year, just like our 5-year plan. We have to update every year. And Mike does a pretty good job the first year or two. And years 3, 4, and 5 are stabs in the dark. They really are. And more than likely that plan changes by the time we get to those years, because either we have funding or we don't, or something else has become priority by that time. So at no point is it, you do this plan and you're locked in for 10 years. Not the case. You redo it every year on there. So let's see, the other, they chose not to. So, and then the last deadline that they did change was the county commission grants awards by January 15th. So January 15th, 2023, before that date, we have to review all the applications and pick the awards. County commission's decision is final. It's not appealable. But if you are refused, you can apply for the same bridge the next year. Because we don't have enough money, I'm sure, to fund all the requests. So it's up to us to try and pick the ones that are in most need of the funding at that time. There's been a lot of questions around tax levies. And Dan had brought I don't know if anybody reads the green sheet, but there was
Good article in it.
an article in there from Brown County, how they're implementing this, and what they're finding is many of their townships don't qualify because they don't have the proper tax levy in place. And that's one reason I sent all those emails and kept sending those emails is there's 2 types of tax levies you can have in place. One has to do with 10, 12, 28.2, and that's a capital improvement fund. That has to be a 50-cent levy. They did not change that. We tried this session to get them to adjust that because that's a huge tax levy. Or you have to have a tax levy by 10/13/36. And I'm hoping that all of our townships have their levies under that second structure, because there's no minimum set for that. You could have a 0.001 tax levy, which is a couple $100 is what it ends up being. Do any of you know what your tax levies are under, which codes? I believe they're 10/13/36, but I can't verify that. Patty, is there any way we can look that up on our end?
I don't know. I will have to check with the secretary or the Department of Revenue.
Okay, so the
I know.
tax,
'Cause I've never
Yours
heard
had
of-
to have been because the other one had to have been done at your annual spring meeting.
Opt-out's a separate levy.
Yeah,
I mean, if you have an opt-out in tax, that would be a 10/13/36.
I assume that is correct.
That's 10/12/28. Basically.
You can increase that.
Well,
though. You can,
No, it's a
or
separate.
not increase it, but you can have there's 2 opt-out channels.
Right.
And one was for what was the verbiage? A capital improvement, I think. 10/13.
12, 13.
So that first one's not your normal.
No,
A few years ago, you remember when the county tried for the special tax, the road levy opt-out for like 50 cents and they failed miserably? That levy is the 50-cent levy. The other one, it would have been your standard levy. Let me see if I can get that 101336 here. So 101336 is an excess tax levy authorized vote of governing body announcement requirements referendum election. And I believe that is probably the ones you are all using. The other one is the newer one, 1034-6. Oh. Until I'm not a lawyer here.
Is it 10?
Check the pocket part in the back.
It's authorization of tax levy for secondary road capital improvement fund. And that went into effect April 1st of 2015. So that's that newer one. It's just the statute with which you did it. And do you recall on your paperwork if you had to clarify? Who just passed there? Walshtown did. You just did the paperwork for it. How did you do the paperwork for it? Okay. So that'd be the second one.
What we had at that meeting and talked about was that was the 101336.
If they updated it, it would be in the back of the book. Way back.
Yep, and so that's the excess tax levy out of your general fund. So you did it correctly. So I'm going to assume these are all correct because currently Mission Hill and Walshtown were the only two without an opt-out. And they were both passed this summer. So it's my opinion.
Hill did not.
Oh, Mission Hill didn't?
No.
Which one was advertised then?
Walshtown.
No, there was two. There was another one. Was it Vollen? They renewed theirs maybe?
Yeah.
Okay, so Mission Hill did not.
They did not.
So Mission Hill will be the only township not eligible for the funds. Because the unorganized townships have a tax levy in place as well. So all the unorganized townships qualify as well. Any questions on that? There's always questions on laws, aren't there? Okay. Let me make a note to follow it to make sure these are all correct. And I'm not sure why they chose not to change that 50 cent. Because when you think of the valuation in your township, if you had a 50-cent tax levy, I mean, that's pretty heavy. Most of your standard levies are much less than that. So our county came out pretty good. Originally, we were allocated $36,000 or so to do the inventory. They guessed at the percentage of structures our county had compared to the state. We ended up with almost twice as many. So instead of that 36,000, the next year we got 75,000 for that first law that went through. And then at this last session, they awarded even more money for 2023. So we ended up with $285,000. So next year, we have that much funding to award projects for. The county and the township's minimum is 20%. And I had to read that a couple times in law. It says, so you could read that as the county could pay 80% and the township 20, or the county 20 and the township 80, which I think that's probably where we will go with that. See if I can find that law. 10, 12, 13.
The pocket
Yeah, and
part
that's not the ones I was looking at, though.
in the back of the book shows if they've updated it.
Right. Okay, so let me find where that says that. The township or county share is a minimum of 20% of the sum necessary to complete the project.
I think they have county in there in reference to 31, 34, 8. Where the county can use the funds on their secondary roads.
Yes, secondary townships count. So if Mike has a structure that's on this list, Mike can apply for funding just like you guys can on behalf of the unorganized townships. And as a county commission, we have to be fair in hearing those. So Mike can't be part of the decision if you apply
But I
for
think-
funding.
I think that's why it's worded goofy because it applies to
Oh,
the
I
county
see what you're
too.
saying.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Okay,
So I think it is 20% to the applicant, let's say.
thank you. I'm corrected. So it's a 20%. So we have 85,000, and then for 2024 and 2025, we have 209,000 each of those years. So if you add that up, that's 3, 4, 5, 6, that's $700,000 in the next 3 years. So it's real money. So if there are projects out there that you have, I highly encourage you to be applying for the funds, because if we don't use it, we have to give it back.
There's
that's
no
not good.
Guarantee this program is gonna continue after this authorization, because it's not a permanent. I believe it was last year, and then they allocated 25 million to 2023, 2024, and 25, but there's no money allocated after that point.
So, so we would have four years beyond 2025 to get all of our money spent if they chose not to give us any more. I hope they do. I hope they continue it like the big grant that we use every year. And at least put a minimum of 3 million in it like they started, but we'll have to lobby hard for that, I'm sure.
First one, 20%.
Yes,
Because I mean, 285,000, 20%.
No, I believe- I read it as the township has to come up with a minimum of 20%, that
Oh,
that 80% would come out of here.
okay. I thought we paid 80.
No, and then so depending on how many applicants, what projects are, it could shake out, well, everyone's getting it, but everyone has to pay 50%.
Okay.
Or, wherever those,
Well, I was thinking
But it's
we
a-
gotta spend like $1.3 million.
oh,
no,
So
no.
let's
You
give an
don't- you would
example.
You would have 20, you're on the hook for a minimum of 20.
so let's do an example. You got a bridge, $100,000, you got to chunk in 20.
At least.
At least. So if we get a lot of applications and we feel maybe everybody, you should do 30, so we can do more projects, we might go down that path. And that's probably something we should talk about on that application.
So if we apply for it and we get denied, we can't fund it.
Absolutely. That is written into the law. You can keep applying with the same bridge. So on the application for the grant, you have your date, your township, address, telephone, your structure ID, the location, the issue, safety implications, proposed solutions. You've got your number of county residents affected, the estimated completion date. Is it a one-time problem or a recurring problem? Size of the culvert. And the new culvert, is it bigger or smaller? Engineering costs associated, additional permitting may be required if the replacement is different. You got a total project cost, township proposed contribution. So if the cost is 100,000 and you're proposing 20,000, you're going to ask for 80. That's what I'm wondering. And how do you think it would be better to do that? All of us, is if the county commission's going to start messing with your contribution, would it be better to put a range in there? That's risky on your part because you'd like, it's kind of like going and buying a house. Well, I'm willing to go up to 160, but you don't tell them that right away. You kind of, so what do you guys think?
It's hard to say this. I would say we get all the applications and we look.
Let me look at our
Get a total.
January.
I mean, we may end up with essentially a request for $300,000 and that makes it pretty easy. But if we end up with requests of $1 million, that's where it gets tough.
Yep. So we had, the first meeting in January is on the 3rd and the next meeting is the 17th.
I would,
So it may end up being a special
we need to
meeting.
talk later on, but I might suggest that we do this in this year. Because there's potentially 3 new people sitting in this seat.
Mhm.
The first meeting, we would discuss this.
Oh, good point, Joe, because the deadline for applications is in October and our deadline to make a decision, we could make a decision in October, November, or November, December on that. So you're
We need to
right.
see what we get for applications.
Right.
First.
Yep.
And then determine, I guess I'm of the opinion we want to contribute as close to the 80% as we can. You know,
Right.
for these guys, and there's no sending money back to the state, spend it on projects and.
Yeah, I think until we see the applications, we can only speculate what's gonna be there.
It'll be a little easier for us.
It'll be made by January 15th at the
Yeah,
latest.
we've
so-
got a deadline.
Right,
Yeah, and it would be wise to do it November or December. And then you have to attach a bid proposal estimate from contractor with this application. So everything on this application has to be done by October 31st. So if you are considering applying for next year, one, you need to decide which structure you're going to pick. And then you have to get somebody to come out and give you a bid for what it's going to cost before October 31st.
But we have to have something done by August 31st.
that's their
5-year plan. Yep. So your 5-year plan, and from that, you're going to pick your worst structure and decide if you want to apply for that.
Do these guys all have 5-year plans done? Okay, and are you guys, are you helping them out with the 5-year plan, putting it together?
well,
It's on that.
this is.
So this is the 5-year
plan.
plan.
So that's all
it is?
they,
Okay.
all they were gonna be required, so it's
All right.
fairly simple.
So I have a suggestion. Burn up the 285 for next year. Would it be a bad idea to encourage these townships to apply for a larger project and a smaller project? That way, there would be more option to get all that money burnt up. So say there's 4 big projects, well, it's gonna get us to 245,000. Well, maybe there's a small project that we could squeeze in. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, exactly. Is everybody following what Mike's saying?
Yeah, I don't know
Making
if I'd
sense?
limit it to one, and I would put a separate application for each structure, but I wouldn't necessarily limit it to one. In that event that there is extra funding and
Right, and it's hard to get to that dollar amount, so we need some cheaper projects to look at also possibly.
Okay. Makes sense to everyone? Pick a big one, pick a small one or a medium one, or 2 medium ones. You can apply for 5 if you want to, 5, 6, 7.
Mike,
But-
how many dollars is a medium-sized project?
It all depends on the situation, I guess.
Just give me a figure.
Say, small culvert, say it's $20,000-$30,000 project.
smaller 4x4 box that is no longer going to be a box, it's gonna get changed to a steel cover. It's in a dry situation. You know, depending on how much dirt is on top. It could be even less, it could be $10,000.
So have you looked at the unorganized township structures? A few? Okay, so I was just trying to tee off Don's question about cost. Are there projects out there that are $100,000?
I could see it, yeah, there's a small bridge that you want to change into a concrete box. So does this qualify for the county bridges that you have in our township?
Only on secondary.
Secondary
roads,
roads, so town,
Then it
Well,
would.
they are the county, but this is
Then
small structure, so anything. So there isn't gonna be any $150,000. No, I wouldn't think so. I'd say
Most, you guys are gonna have a hefty one.
We're gonna have a big one. We're gonna have $100,000. You got two. So we would like to get one. You look at our town, you gotta have a lot of stuff. There are quite a few bridges out there that are below 20 feet in length. So if it's below 20 feet in length, that is townships. Yeah, yeah, but anything longer than that. County, that does not apply.
No.
This is just for small structures, anything below 20 feet length. Going back.
What was that question?
No looking back. Something, say you get a big project.
No, nope. Nope.
What happens if you don't have the money? And you get take a loan out then to complete the project then, or?
Yep. Cause I thought on, where is this?
That I wasn't 100% sure.
Okay.
You can, well, that's the improvement plan. So my read on this, and there's others can weigh in. The 2023 funding, 285,000, we have 4 years to spend it. So my take is you could apply. Let's say you had 20,000, but you know you've got a big project coming up. My take is you could apply in this fall for a 2023 funding and put your estimated completion date 2 years from, 2024. And that would tie up this funding from
It'd be committed.
2023, even though you might not do it for 1 year. That's how I would understand that. And then in 2024, when we received the $209,000, if you were awarded that out of 23, that's where that funding would come from. Even though that project is done in 24.
And I think isn't there options for a special projects? So they get approved and they're having difficulty paying for it. They could do a 1-year special improvement opt out. Is that correct?
Oh, for like another opt out?
Yeah, yeah. If they had a huge project,
Right,
they got approved, they don't have the funding, that might be
right.
something they could take to their constituents. Hey, we have this funding. We're gonna do an opt out for 1 year.
Yeah, you
for
could
that
always
project.
do another
Yeah.
opt out. So like
Yeah.
for Walshtown that just implemented that opt out, when will that funding be available?
Next year.
Yep, 2023.
2023, January 1, 2023.
And you said Mission Hill is the only one that doesn't qualify, but if they do an opt out next year, then they would qualify for rest of those.
2024.
For the
Yes,
2024,
yeah,
yep.
Yes. Okay.
So. Now I would caution of putting a, say, 2025 or 26 completion date for a 23 application. Because if something were to happen and that fell through, that would only leave a year to spend that funding before it went back to the state. So I would,
Well, yeah, and if we get in that situation where the money's not going to be spent, I think it would be wise for the township to give the money up so we can reallocate it
right,
and spend it.
right.
So. It's very similar to the big grant we just got. It was awarded last or in January, February. But we're not going to spend the money until next year or the year after. We have 3 years to spend it. So I would think that would be a good rule of thumb here, is to certainly spend it within 3 years, because if you don't, we need to reallocate it so it doesn't leave our county. On that. What was the other thing I wanted to make sure we covered? So it'll cover engineering, hydrologic studies, planning, materials for construction, rehabilitation, or replacement. They may not be spent on no maintenance or minimum maintenance roads, so there shouldn't be any structures listed there, so that should be pretty easy. What other questions? Yep, so nope, you can just essentially rewrite that application and submit it the next year, because you'll probably have to get an updated bid because things change on that.
We have a lot of structure that we might be looking at this on. It's got that now, but-
Let's see,
I don't know if
where's the
they've
June
got a process,
1st?
but there should be.
There was a June 1st deadline in here. Where'd that go? If I was home, I could search.
What's the name of that thread? Or what are you looking at?
I'm looking at the state law that has, there's a
Mike,
June
did that
1st,
get-
The
did that
3130.
get skipped over during the
Uh,
inventory process, that structure? you're talking about?
3134.
Well, they sent a map out and I saw it and I told Scott the only one that I saw.
Why am I not seeing
Okay.
June
I didn't
1st?
mark it on the map.
June 1st, 31,
Do you
34,
want to
3.
check on, because we
Three?
paid them good money to do that.
Oh,
That
there it
should-
is.
There's got to be a way to add that on, so. Any of you other guys have missing structures that aren't, when they did the inventory, that weren't on the map? Is that just you?
Monies may only be used for the expenses of those small structures inventoried with the department as referenced in 3134-2 by June 1st of the preceding year. So you will need to have that added by June 1st of this year of 2023, and then that'll become eligible on 24.
Well, they're eating them. I don't even know how else. Yeah, I mean, we have-
Turkey down. What road is that, Mike? 295th.
Where am I?
Yeah.
Sucks to get old.
295th?
It's right there. You see-
So 452nd is the county line. Would it be,
Yeah. That's right there. That didn't show up on my map.
So it's there.
It's there.
Okay.
That's one less.
There's
thing you have
your-
to deal with.
There's all your information that would pull up before.
I don't know why I can't get pictures to pull up.
I think this is on the GIS one. I didn't go through the towns and townships link because I don't have that one. So that might be why.
That's what I always use. Was the town.
Maybe, I mean, if you want to Google it, maybe that link is better because this is just the South Dakota. Open another tab so you don't. use-
Hold on, let me
use
see that
this one.
6, go ahead.
Oh, I'd open another tab up here.
Right. I'll do it. Yeah. I'll try.
Should be there, yeah. Wow.
Jeez.
And see, there was, I think, was there one county that got 0 allocation?
It's- You zoom out.
It's
but
not
remember
on
this-
this.
The
It's
state
not
has,
on
has
this.
a, what, $100 million excess in the budget.
That 6-8 number, kind of, and that part number.
That's Yankton County. All of our,
That's the structure number.
The 6-8.
Yeah.
yep, the 60, yeah, the first 2 digits, that's our county. I think that has to do with the longitude. latitude.
One more than 399.
So it's a structure number 2387?
2387-0400. So that entire thing is the structure number.
I get that.
Yeah.
First part is the county.
Oh,
The second part.
I think it has to do with how far west and this one is the north-south deal. That's kind
Oh,
of
it's
how.
probably the town, yeah, Range Township,
Yeah,
and then the
What
structure
am I
number is
missing
probably
here?
actually.
I don't know.
400.
So we could apply for that one.
Yeah, it's on. the
If it's
inventory.
there, yep.
It's just not on this map.
Yeah, it's not on this map.
That's
Is it on the
weird why
list?
it's not on-
I don't see it on the list
Oh, I
either.
didn't see it on the list.
Need to upgrade computers.
It's labeled minimum maintenance.
We have something that's posted, and we did that. Figured out just for pay purposes. In the bad year, we didn't have a snow equipment like we do now. Still maintain 100%.
I think. Do you know, Mike, if it's posted or if you have to actually put it register?
probably not because, like if we were to do turning gravel road into a minimum maintenance or no maintenance, I'd have to bring it to the commission. They'd have to do a
This is
resolution.
just our benefit. Years ago,
What's the bridge you guys are trying to find?
So I
Yeah, that's a lot of our structure.
2387.
The-
It's over on the right-hand side of the county.
Is there a register in the state?
Right-hand side?
I know the county has, yes.
You know,
Toward it's the northeast corner of the county.
Okay. Pull the sign. Yeah, if it hasn't been registered minimum maintenance, I think you're okay.
23, no, it's 2387. 0400. There it is, right there.
Here's your photos.
So it's on the,
It's on that map.
Mike. It's on the South Dakota small structure inventory list. So you should be okay. Who did this, Bros? We need to contact Bros and make sure this is added.
Yeah, I don't know where this got from.
Which one are you thinking? I just thought. Mike pulled this.
Okay, okay.
Because that's where the inventory, the live one.
Okay, so as long as it's on there, you're good.
Just use that
Data.
number that came up.
Yep. Yep.
South Dakota Towns.
Yeah.
It might be a good idea for you guys to do like Mr. Swenson did and just double check that all of these are accurate.
There's gonna be a lot of learning curves, I think, through the first process, so
It's gonna make a pretty good impact for us.
it will. It's a lot of money. They ended up putting more money in there than I thought they would. It was a little bigger to begin with, but they didn't gut it much. So Caleb Fink, who didn't make it through the primary, was a huge advocate for this. He served on home area over there, legislator. He worked hard for this.
So going back to the percent match, did we kind of come to consensus, put your 20 or whatever you feel and just know it might change? That sound reasonable?
We'll do our best not to, because that messes with your guys' plans too.
Right.
But
And what I'm foreseeing is we're gonna get applications in. I'm foreseeing a special meeting. We'll take time to go through these applications. I'm foreseeing putting a special meeting together. At least one representative from each township come and kind of explain the project, and that'll give us a better understanding. I think before we make decisions, we can have feedback that, yeah, you might be looking at 30% or 40% or whatever, but
So it's a better deal for 100,000, they were throwing 20,000. Spent 100,000 or 80,000 ours, or is it? Cost later?
on the application on the very top, funding is subject to, with payment after project completion.
Submit receipts.
So I would think it would be unfair for anybody to say it's gonna be 100,000 and ends up being 70. You know, I think we need to work together because
but
it's,
on that note, though, just like the county with our big grants, we fund 100% of that and then get reimbursed.
yeah.
So I
and
don't know
I,
how, because a lot of townships aren't gonna have the money laying
A
around.
lot of times, like the way we do it, we used to do it with the James River Board is when projects were done, submit the receipts right away,
Yeah,
because we're not gonna, it won't take us that
The
long. to
con-
get that
will-
money
right.
back out. And then that's.
'Cause you'll
a
get
good
net 90 to
motivation for
pay the
these guys to get
contractor
it
or
turned in
whatever.
Right away.
right, and I think that's only
think that's the
fair.
way-
You guys don't have the funds to reach that deep to.
right.
You'd have to borrow the money and then get a short-term loan, and that just doesn't make sense. So
So,
I do agree with that approach, is to submit all your receipts and we pay our 80% and you're on the hook for 20. And I would think that'd be wise for us to pay the contractor directly.
Mhm.
They should know we're good for it.
Yeah.
It's all tax dollars. So, but again, that 700,000 is a huge impact to you guys on these small roads. It would be a huge impact for the county, for county roads, that kind of money.
and
Oh,
that's the-
yeah, well,
hopefully
that's,
The intention is
Yep.
that this is a a fund set up, so you don't have to, yeah.
Yep, exactly.
You guys are all members of the South Dakota Towns and Township Association, correct? And, you know, really kudos should be given to your state association because they helped out a lot with this, as well as the County Commission Association. So sometimes it does work, those organizations. So I appreciate both of their efforts.
Hopefully it's not as difficult as the FEMA process you guys had to go through. Or for 2019.
Don't drive on it.
Mike, do you know?
They were just out inspecting with it. I would assume something like that is, they would suggest having an engineer come and actually inspect.
To look. Okay.
Determine possibly posted or closed or.
Cause they were just taking the inventory. They weren't being paid to do a full inspection. It's probably, so they might have flagged something that said, yeah, you might want to look at this thing. Yeah. I don't
Yeah, and I don't
think so.
necessarily have to be the same.
But if you're gonna make it larger though, don't you have engineering you have to do? So it's careful. Yeah. If you need a bigger structure, I would say that needs to be incurred in your costs. Don't just make it bigger on your own, because that requires a lot more work.
So we have about 15% of the townships represented here today. I would suggest that Gary or whomever send an invite for the other township boards to review the recording. And we ought to be prepared to not be concerned if they start whining and crying later on that they weren't informed.
You know,
Because these guys came, they've asked their questions. They should get the majority of.
I agree, Don. I think it might not be a bad idea to schedule the next meeting, just a few minutes to go over this again, because not everybody can make it during the day.
Well,
Yeah.
they've got what, 5 on each
Yeah,
township board or
but,
something.
I think
Sure as hell,
Ma-
one
it
out of
wouldn't
5
hurt.
could come.
Sherry's got that email list. If you wouldn't mind
Yep.
replying all and
just-
just put a link to the video, and then people can contact with questions.
Yep. And a lot of information's went out on this too.
Right.
So if anything changes, because the state is notorious for changing things at the last minute, we will get that information out to you. Hopefully they don't change stuff and let it at least go through a cycle before they change things, but we know how that goes, right?
I guess my point is that in the past year, we've listened to a lot of crying about the east and the west side of the counties. Well, we got representation from one area, and that's probably an indicator of why those things
Yeah.
happen. And people should be held responsible.
If you guys are having meetings and you want a commissioner to be there, give me a call. I'd be happy to come anytime. Not that I'm an
Likewise.
expert on roads and stuff, but paperwork usually I can help you out with. So I think I always put my phone number, but if you got a pen, it's 653-0910. You're welcome to call anytime and happy to answer any questions. 653-0910. That's my cell phone. So you can text that number too, if it's easier to give me a text as well. And if
And-
it's really urgent, I can drag Mike along with me.
And if kind of a rough voice answers, it's her husband, don't worry about it. He's a pretty neat guy.
He's a teddy bear, so. Well,
I bet it's because there's a whole list of people.
I'm probably on some list somewhere.
Sometimes that'll happen to me if there's a whole bunch of people on there that aren't normally emailed. Your spam folder will catch that or something, so.
Yeah. Oh. Well, Kevin, you need to reply to all my emails then, so everybody gets them. So sorry about that. So, all right, but
Any other questions? I think the main takeaways is get the 5-year plan done by August 31st and get an application submitted by October 31st. And I would offer my help, but Sherry already did, so call her if you need help. And I certainly could swing out too, or stop too if there's any questions. So
okay.
Other than that, I think that's all we have. There's
Okay.
Anything else while you guys are here?
with that, we'll close item 6 and move to public comment. Would anybody in the audience care to make public comment? Hearing and seeing none, public comment is closed.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Meeting is adjourned.